Thanksgiving, that holiday where we celebrate by eating a bird that the rest of the year kids complain about having to eat. The holiday where we get together with family and friends and leave Thanksgiving possibly not being very friendly with family. Thanksgiving, the time of the year where we are thankful for what we have by eating more than we could possibly imagine until our stomachs want to bust and still having a lot of wasted materials on the table so that we can talk about how grateful we are and how we don't take things for granted. Thanksgiving, that holiday that's kind of like the middle child between Halloween and Christmas. Yeah, everybody kind of likes it, but it's not the favorite. Will Ferrell is or Tony Todd is, but there's no hero in any Thanksgiving movie. Thanksgiving, it just is. It's a thing that happens, and I'm really excited about that for you. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. It's College Success Coaching. I'm Eric Allen. Let's start. So on this wonderful Turkocalypse extravaganza that we are starting for you all, and if you are watching this on YouTube, you will see that there is the link to the description below that will have you whisked away to our wonderful website where you can see how to become a member, not just a subscriber on the YouTube channel, although that is appreciated, and I like all of you who have done that already. You can jump onto the actual website and see where the real magic happens, because while we will go over some of the things on this YouTube video for you, you're missing out on a lot more. We're going to go over questions and answers and holiday specific things, and you will find out more about me and what I'm doing for the holiday, and you're just not going to get to if you're not a member. So subscribe now. There's no reason why you shouldn't. It's free for 2 weeks, then it's only $50 a week after that. It's no big deal. It's kind of like your Verizon bill, right? So you have AT&T? What? Never mind. It's about cell phones. The point is, it's great. It's worthwhile, and we have fun. It's a good time. So feel free to click on that while you're waiting for what you've all been actually waiting for, which is the mug of the week. The mug of the week this week is from Edible Arrangements. If you don't know what Edible Arrangements is, I don't know what rock you've lived under, but it is Heartable. You can go on to Edible Arrangements website. You can find the store near you, and you can send me some leaven, some chocolate dipped fruit leaven. But yeah, no, it doesn't have to be me, but you can make it a centerpiece for your Thanksgiving Day table, or you can just send it to people. This actually had fruit and stuffs in it, chocolate dipped fruit, and I got to keep the mug, and you guys know how much I love mugs, so that was awesome. Good coffee still at this time of night, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. So I hope that you've all either jumped on and subscribed and you're on the website, and now you get to ask questions live. But for everybody who's watching this after the fact, you poor souls, at least you're watching it on your Thanksgiving break, in which case you can see the Turkocalypse's article of the week. This week, the article is about personality tests, specifically the Myers-Briggs. Now, you might be thinking, Eric, with your psychology background and what you know about all of this, you must be like talking about how great these are. Wrong. No, I am talking about the article titled, "It's Time to Stop Using Myers-Briggs at Work." And I would argue also for school. We're going to get into that as we go forward. This is from vitals.lifehacker.com. Vitals is a very interesting website, and they talk about a lot of different things from different websites that they have a lot of contributors to. And what I like about this article is I was going to do actually a compilation of articles I had found on the different major personality types and how to apply those and how to do better at school and all these other things, basically all the things that they want you to do in the personality cult. But I would rather just get into why these personality tests really aren't what they're cracked up to be. And I'll talk about what I mean as we go through. So this article begins with, "I am an ISFP, according to a test I took this morning," or going by the one I took years ago, an INFP, who is turbulent and may get a different result each time. The Myers-Briggs test is a funny way to spend an hour in self-absorption, but a terrible way to make decisions that affect somebody's livelihood or education. Yes, that's exactly how many employers want to use it. Businesses talk about using the test's results to group people into teams or to select candidates for a position. If people are being passed over for opportunities because of how they scored on a silly quiz, that's capricious and unfair. SAT word for the day, capricious. Look it up. Another way companies use the test is to get employees talking about how they prefer to communicate or what kinds of work they find fulfilling instead of just asking them. Honest communication is good, but the Myers-Briggs isn't going to have any greater insights than having a team-building retreat where the employee reads their horoscope aloud and draws tarot cards. Wow, that is a scathing review of the Myers-Briggs. Tarot cards. Wow. So what is basically what I want to go over on this, they're going to focus on how it's related to work. But the key thing about this article, and I want you to focus in on it, is the lack of predictive power that the Myers-Briggs has on your life. You're at a point in your life and in your school life and career where you're going to start to hear about the Myers-Briggs. Either your school will want you to do one when you go into your new college, your current school will have wanted you to do one, your college coach might have wanted you to do one to kind of get an idea of what colleges you would prefer. And I just want to be clear that it is not just me that is contrarian to the Myers-Briggs. I actually worked with a woman, and it was a weird circumstance. I was helping her with some treatment, but she was one of the original people who started doing the work on the Myers-Briggs, and she was disenfranchised because the whole thing, she said, became very commercial. It really wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing. And the people who founded it, the two guys, Myers and Briggs, who founded it, actually ended up breaking off of each other. They had a lot of disagreements. And one of them ended up going off and trying to do their own color-coded personality test, which I would argue is very similar to the Myers-Briggs. But the point is, there's a lot of politics involved with this. This was a lot of pop psychology where the guys were kind of the Freuds of their time. And there wasn't a whole lot of substance. And you'll hear me talk about this a lot when it comes to this pop psychology, which I would argue at this point, Myers-Briggs is pop psychology. So what do I mean by that? Give me a minute, I'll tell you. Anybody know Gilligan's Island? So sit right back and I'll tell a tale of the Myers-Briggs testing. Anyway, you don't know. That's way even before my time. So what happens with tests like these, they have what's called an N. That just means a number of participants in the research that was done on the test. So what a personality test banks on is they ask thousands of people, hopefully tens of thousands of people, the same questions over and over and over again. And then they do other measurements of aspects of personality. Like they'll ask about leadership and about introversion, extroversion. So they have all these characteristics that are observed on these people. And they look at all the answers to these and they do what's called normalize the results. So they say out of these 20,000 people, there's a cluster of people, there's 15,000 people who answered in this way when they answered these other metrics this way. So we put this metric with this metric and we call this introversion or extroversion. So if you endorse these same items that these 15,000 people did, you're likely to have the same personality. So you're likely to like the same things, do the same types of things, be comfortable with the same things. I hope you can start to already see the problem with this sort of research. It's all correlational. And if you've been with me for a little while, you know that correlation does not mean causation. And what that means is that just because two things are related doesn't mean one caused the other or that they have anything to do with each other. I give the example all the time that Nicolas Cage began having more and more movies in the 2000s. Global temperatures increased during the 2000s. Nicolas Cage causes global warming. I'll have to ask him about that, but he still has yet to respond to all of my queries about his involvement in alleged global warming. So you see how this is really a problem. You could take any number of things, relate them to any other number of things and say, they're related. Yes, they are. And even if they're consistently related, that does not mean that they're causal to each other or that they're determined to be necessary. Now, there's statistical significance studies, and there's a lot of other complicated statistics that are done with this, like chi-squares and things, and finding R and R squared. You'll find out all about those wonderful things when you go to college and learn about statistics. Or if you're into psychology or anything like that, you should be taking a stats class in high school if you can. If that isn't available at your high school, go ahead and take it in a local college. Anyway, a total aside, but good advice. What I mean is that the other problem is that they have college-aged students that are answering these by and large. I mean, by and large, this is 18, 19-year-olds that are answering all of these questions. Their N is really college freshmen College freshmen are the number one group of people to be studied. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure I was different when I was 18, 19 than when I was 14. And I'm certainly different now than when I was even 20. So this is a very limited scope of people that answer this way and then answer these other questions. So even if I have the same answers as some of these people, it doesn't mean that we have anything else in common in terms of how we think, how we feel, how we view the world. As you get older, hopefully your view of the world matures. Hopefully you start to find things more valuable. You have some sort of moral code or structure that you probably don't have set in yet when you're in college. I mean, most people go to college and find out what they really believe and get passionate about. Obviously, my hope for you is that we're building that for you before you get there, so somebody else doesn't program you and tell you what to think and feel, that you're able to come up with your own logical, reasonable value system so that you can move through your life in the way that you really do benefit from and not the way that somebody else told you you should benefit from. But that's the problem with college, right? It's like that tabula rasa thing. So there's all these people who don't really know what they think or what they feel, and they're getting a certain bent of information, and then there's correlation between their answers and your answers, even if you're 30, even if you're 28. So you start to see like where this really doesn't make a ton of sense. What they're saying that these things are, I don't really think that they mean what they think they mean. Again, I'm going to go back to Princess Bride. I do not think that means what you think it means. So there's a lot of problems with the Myers-Briggs. This is what they're talking about in terms of work, but you will start to hear about this more and more when it comes to college. So kind of just say no to people trying to pigeonhole you based on what you scored on the Myers-Briggs. Anyway, let's keep going. Another way companies use the test is to get employees talking about how they prefer to communicate. And we talked about the tarot cards. The test can be taken dozens of times and has dozens of questions. There's an unofficial version that they have a link to. Again, check the link in the description for the article if you're on YouTube. Otherwise, you can click on it right now. Go ahead. You could be taking this while you're listening to me. It's not like it's going to take a ton of concentration to take this test. There's a quick version too they have here to decide whether you think you fall on where you fall on the 4 qualities it measures. So here you go. Do you feel energized when you interact with people? E for extrovert. Or does it make you feel exhausted when you need to be alone to recharge? I for introvert. When you gather information, do you focus on details and practicalities? S for sensing. Or do you think about the big picture and what you dream is possible? N for intuiting. I love that it's not I, because that's for introvert. It's kind of like on the calendar, it's like MTWRFSS. So they did an R for Thursday, but Saturday and Sunday are still S and S. Go figure. When you make decisions, do you emphasize logic and fairness? T for thinking. Or compassion and personal values? F for feeling. So, I mean, there's all kinds of problems that I could get into with that. Just T for thinking. So do you think or do you just feel? Because you can't do both. When you look to the future, do you make detailed plans and stick to them? J for judging. Or do you wing it and look for more information as you go? P for perceiving. So if this was like, if this was Fallout and we were looking at your special scores, you could basically fit your special into the Myers-Briggs. It's so sad, but that's true. The result is a 4-letter code, and you can Google endlessly to read about what your personality type supposedly says about you. What you can actually use the Myers-Briggs for. So there is some use. I'm serious about the Myers-Briggs being like tarot cards, the article continues. Say you're asking the deck of cards for advice on a problem you're having. You draw one of the 72 cards, all deep in layers of symbolism, illustrated on the card and explained to you by the person doing the reading, and then you consider how this card applies to your situation. The magic isn't in the card because it's just a piece of paper chosen at random. But when you start thinking, how is my relationship with deadbeat roommate like the magician? You may see aspects of your problem that you hadn't considered before. So it's kind of like a Rorschach. If you know what that is, it's an ink blot test where like somebody will say, what is this? And you'll say, oh, it's 2 horses. And somebody else will go, no, it's an anvil. Like it is what your mind makes it. It's a moth, it's a butterfly. It just looks like it's a bird or it's a bat, like different things that you think it is based on what you feel, what you think, what's going on in your head. So it's an interpretation of data that can help steer you in different directions. There is value to that, by the way. Any personality test can work this way. I'm an ISFP, you can say to your coworker who has just been through the same silly test, and then you can bond over similarities or embrace differences and get into a fist fight about whether or not one is better. In the process, you'll certainly talk about which parts of the description you match and which feel like a stretch, which again, it's just having a soundboard to kind of base a conversation on. For example, the first letter of your Myers-Briggs code is either I for introvert or E for extrovert. Few people fall solidly into one or the other, so labeling someone for all eternity is pointless. But in discussing your type, you might realize that you find interacting with people to be exhausting in some scenarios and energizing in others. That's good to know and great to be able to communicate to people that you work with. So again, just trying to put you in a box and then you saying, no, I don't belong in a box. Here's why. Articulating that is actually really useful. So in essence, it's useful because of how useless it is what this article is saying. And there's a lot of truth to that. Why it's terrible for making meaningful decisions. Well, we just got right back into the scathing, the salt. For anything beyond a conversation starter, personality tests are the wrong tool for the job. Even CPP, which sells Myers-Briggs related services to companies, warns that the MBTI questionnaire should never be used in recruitment or selection because it does not measure a person's skills or abilities, just their underlying personality preferences. Think about that for a second. So the company that sells personality inventories to businesses who are definitely purchasing those to make decisions about recruitment are saying, don't use this for recruitment. Here you go. Just don't do what you're going to do with it. Here you go. Talk about like dusting off any responsibility. If the right person for the job happens to be an ENFJ when you're looking for an INTP, it's usually perfectly legal to reject or fire them on the basis of that test. But it's a boneheaded move, just like if you fired them because you're a Virgo and you somehow decided you're looking for a Leo. And because the test is so variable and predicts next to nothing about future performance, that's a link actually to another really good article that shows that it backs up what they're saying. So it's not just fluff. This is not just an opinion. This has been backed up by research. It can feel like a waste of time and resources. It feels that way because it is. If you want to get your employees talking about how they like to communicate and solve problems, why not skip the test? It's in its place. You can have a good old-fashioned BS-free conversation. I censored it because this is a family-friendly show. It's not really. I mean, even for the college kids especially, it's not. So, but yeah, there's money better spent, honestly, than personality inventories. But what's going on is that there's this cult of personality. You probably don't get that joke. Look that up. But you're welcome for that when you find out that was a really good joke. You are going to be finding more and more that colleges and counselors and recruiters and that they want you to take personality inventories. You got to do it. Just take it, get it over with. But take it with a huge grain of salt. So much salt. Take it with salt because again, just because you might be somebody who's a feeler and you're somebody who's intuitive and you're introverted, that might be the case, but none of that may predict whether or not you like this movie or this movie. So do the things you have to do to find out more about yourself, but personality inventories probably are not those things. A conversation that started on them, though, could lead you down a path where you learn more about yourself. And honestly, that's the point of all this. So at the end of the day, full circle, this works out. So yeah, you're welcome. This has been the article of the week. All right. So I hope you got something out of that article of the week and you learned at least a little bit more about the fact that you're not going to learn more about yourself based on just a simple personality test. Just be careful out there. There are so many things that people will tell you about yourself, but this article was exactly right in that it's just like a tarot card. It can't really tell you about you as much as you can. If you would actually like to know more about yourself, it just takes discovery. Discovery through the processes that we've been talking about for the last half a year. Going and working on things that you kind of sort of fell into. You always seem to do automatically, the types of people, the types of things, animals, or whatever it is that you kind of gravitate toward automatically in your free time, your spare time, and then turning that into something of an activity where you provide value to that. And then if there's this fuzzy feeling of like, I get this clicks with me, I'm feeling meaningful when I'm doing this, or there's some flow state where you kind of spent 2 hours doing it and you didn't realize, and you feel great and energized afterward. That's a discovery about what really does matter to you. And that's so much more important than whether or not you're an introvert or an extrovert. And by the way, I'm an extroverted introvert. Aha. Yeah, that doesn't mean anything. And that's the point, is I know what I am, and you can know more about you through discovery and actions, talking to people who know you, asking people about, what is it that you see about me that you like? What is my strongest characteristic? Those are much more valuable things to do, to find out about what you like, what you value, what your moral code is, what your system is, whether or not that you feel like family is the most important thing, or you feel like learning is the most important thing, or you feel like saving animals is the most important thing, or you feel like being in the service industry or arguing or protecting people groups or people. All of those things can be found out by you through exercising your power as a person to discover yourself. So I hope that that's a little bit of your inspiration for the week. You do have time. If you are here for the Thanksgiving break, you have no school. So good luck on that. Ask your family members to take advantage of that time. Maybe they'll take some time out of talking about politics to tell you about yourself and help you learn more about what you want to try out before you go off into the wild blue yonder. So anyway, for all of you who are on YouTube, again, go down here and check out how you can become a member. Otherwise, we're going to have to say goodbye to you, and we're going to talk about things behind your back. We're going to be talking about you. Don't worry, we'll talk about you. But you're not going to know what it is unless you subscribe. So otherwise, I'll see you next week. Adieu to you.